Community philanthropy. It's an ancient practice and a modern one. In every part of the world, there are living traditions of giving and communities sharing resources. But it goes largely unseen and undervalued. Meanwhile, big philanthropy dominates the headlines. It's made more visible by growing inequality and our unjust economic system. The word philanthropy has come to suggest a hierarchy, a giver and beneficiary. The word has lost its connection to its original meaning, which is simply a love of humankind. In quiet corners around the world, community leaders are building on local traditions of solidarity and mutual aid. They have started to think how community philanthropy can be used strategically for development led and driven by the community. So for those leaders, what is community philanthropy and what are its traditions?
Here in Uganda, community philanthropy has deep roots. You can call it sharing, you can call it power, it's oneness, and I don't think we even recognize it as philanthropy. We have terms like Ubuntu Bulamu, which is a recognition that as a community, as a people, we are mutually interdependent.
Community philanthropy is a practice of solidarity and support that has existed for many, many years in Mexico. We call it either tequio or mano vuelta. The people, they just help each other.
In Palestine, we have an alternative word that we use, which is al-auna. Al-auna is more of a community safety space where people can work together collectively to ensure that everyone is living safely.
Filipinos experience lot of hazards on a regular basis. It's so natural for Filipinos to share what they have. We call it in our language, pagkakaloob, or generous giving.
First and foremost, community philanthropy is a choice. The biggest and most crucial asset is not funds, but networks of trust.
Community philanthropy basically existed within religious and traditional giving, which means you help each other out and you take responsibility as an entire community where you went and planted each other's rice fields without exchanging money.
Community philanthropy places power where it belongs, in the hands of less privileged groups. Building collective power has transformative potential. It mitigates injustice and centers what matters most, which is our interconnectedness.
Philanthropy is one of definition of democratic society. If philanthropy is existing, it means that society is democratic. Community philanthropy is about people. It's really demonstrate cohesion and kindness.
Partnerships, mutual support and dependence, exchange of labor, a social safety net and autonomy, all these are community philanthropy's deep roots. So what does community philanthropy look like in different parts of the world?
Poland's history is a bit complex because under the communism, it was not possible to operate as a civil society. So we were kind of rebuilding civil society after the collapse of communism in early 90s.
So the struggle for Uganda's independence was led by communities organizing through cooperatives. So for us, at its core, community philanthropy or mobilizing local resources is an act of self-determination, it's an act of independence. It's also about freedom from anyone's influence, anyone's control or conditionalities. This is why the modest financial or even in-kind contributions of ordinary people carry a profound symbolic weight.
So the community philanthropy is inspired by the Palestinian National Charter, and it consists mainly of two main principles, which is liberation and justice. Liberation is because we're living under occupation, and justice means that resources are distributed fairly, equally. That's our message. We are all equal, and the community resources are open for everyone.
One of the organizations that received a microgrant from FemFund started as an informal collective, and they observed that many women face barriers in accessing period products. So what they created these pink boxes, and they were filled with hygiene products, and they started putting them in public spaces, in schools, in refugee centers, in public toilets. So coming from the grassroots, starting with some small seed funding, they grew into something extremely meaningful.
In 2021, Kherson Community Foundation did an analysis what the community is worrying about, and they were worried about their safety and wanted to have a map of shelters. Community Foundation collected all data about where shelters are located. But what's happened next is really about community philanthropy. People started to visit these potential shelters so that it's not properly prepared, and they started to do their cleaning in order to prepare the shelter to be ready if something will happen. And as we may know, in 2022, a full-scale invasion started. And this is about unique knowledge and cohesion in community.
We know that community-led development relies on people giving their time and energy to make things happen. It needs facilities and materials, and also money. But beyond these tangible resources, what else does community philanthropy need to work?
Local philanthropy is not necessarily about money. It is always has been about our own humanity, our own sense of belonging, our own sense of power and agency. I've always argued that local philanthropy helps build civic agency, but also build accountability in ways that no one from the outside can help build.
Several years ago, we carried out a study trying to put value to all the things that a group does. And what we found was that for each dollar that we invest, the groups invest $8. That's the proportion. What it says is that we are the minor investors. No matter if you come with $1 million, you wouldn't achieve what they achieve with $5,000 because you don't have the relations, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the territory.
I think the single most important word would be trust. You can fall back on each other in times of difficulties, or say if there's an environmental disaster, then basically the community philanthropy comes together, because in some of our countries the state is virtually not present.
Community philanthropy has largely been overlooked by mainstream funding systems. There is some recognition of the importance of local resources in the case of disasters, but it has never been part of the large design of international funding. Why?
The dominant system so far has been privileging large-scale initiatives with the aim of generating massive impact. From that kind of vantage point, the small, local, and grassroots look too inconsequential, and they become mere anecdotes. They have created systems of delivery and hierarchies to ensure that their big agendas get implemented. The local groups constantly have to adjust their work to fit into the predetermined systems and priorities of big players, and they do so at the risk of becoming themselves uprooted from their own communities.
It's the harm of money and the aid system that has actually replaced the local resources. So it replaced philanthropy, it replaced the message and importance of giving. The history, a time where there was a flood of aid system coming to Palestine, where everyone thought that the power is in the money. It's not in the people, it's not in the resources, it's not in the country and in the efforts and the experience. This aid system has been only about money.
It's just the unipolar view of philanthropy to look at money, in a sense, rather than what communities have. And even in how we define the language around local philanthropy, words like charity, which reinforce this hierarchy around the giver and the receiver, I think that's what has created this kind of asymmetry. You know, foreign aid builds a sense of power that crowds out local resources.
Community philanthropy is about mobilizing local resources. So how can people outside the community support it? There's a risk that external support, even though it comes with good intentions, may project its own solutions, undermining the wisdom of the community and its own empowerment. So what does it need to thrive and grow?
First, I think it needs time. It needs time to acknowledge the idea that philanthropy is what's giving the long-lasting impact rather than small, short-term intervention. And we insist on saying that it's a support, not a funding, because support is given with solidarity.
And that's the problem with the funders, because they want results within a year without the deep understanding that what we are doing is supporting community processes, and community processes take time.
We need to be able to ask communities, what do you have here? What do you need? And the aim should be strengthening those community systems.
We want to be imagining and reconstructing a system based on equality, where those who are working on the ground, local and small, grassroots, are considered equal partners to big players in the global north with huge resources. So we want to be part of the conversation and part of the reconstructing of a new system that is fair, that respects us and allows us to be who we are.
The real task is to transform the system so it doesn't generate injustice anymore. So the end goal is that traditional philanthropy is no longer needed.
I'm eternally optimistic, and so hope is always there. So I really hope that with all the efforts that we do, more organizations would join our movement, and more movements in different parts of the world would really build unity and solidarity so that the transformation we want for the system and for the world will really happen.
These are challenging times. Development aid is being cut all over the world, and authoritarian governments are on the rise. So for our leaders, why does community philanthropy matter now?
I think it matters now much more than any time else, because we can see the changes in the donors' agendas. People got a big hit with the shrinking in the funding, and they are actually valuing the local resources much more. So there's a great opportunity for us now to put on the table the alternative that we're thinking of.
I think we are facing the polycrisis as the dominant system is collapsing in front of our eyes. It's really high time to center the experience and knowledge of those who were traditionally pushed to the margins, because these oppressed identities have the best strategies on how to survive in a hostile environment.
I can't imagine a time where community philanthropy is not needed. It's needed in every society, not really matter how much community developed or how much country developed. There is always a need for generosity, for kindness.
It matters now because this is a moment of transformation where we really do have to reimagine the system. And for that new system to be truly just, and inclusive, it has to be grounded in communities. Then we may actually come up with a genuinely new and fair and just system.
Community philanthropy has always sustained communities, so it has always been the time for community philanthropy. The time for it is now, and we should be able to embrace it.